I'm Gregor Thomson, I'm a philosopher and a writer, and I know what the meaning of life is. Welcome to The Struggle. This episode is brought to you by The Struggle newsletter. This is a weekly email newsletter in which I send out for free every Sunday a short article concerning the art of embracing struggle. If you feel restricted in life, if something is holding you back, perhaps it's time to struggle your way towards freedom. If you're trying to be productive, you're trying to be healthy and to achieve your dreams, perhaps you're chasing the wrong thing. A lot of us believe that we should be aiming for happiness, but this is an unwise pursuit, as happiness comes and goes without any control from us. However, there is a way to be more fulfilled with life, and that is to embrace struggle, to exercise, to eat healthily, to have uncomfortable conversations, to take career risks, to discover who you are, and to be autonomous. That's the way to break free from whatever it is that's restricting you. And that's why I created a newsletter. Along with the article, I also provide tips, strategies, and recommendations such as movies, music, podcasts, and recipes to help along the way. To sign up for free, go to gregorthomson.com. The link will be in the show notes. Confirm your subscription and make sure you check your spam folder for your welcome newsletter and add me to your contacts to continue to receive it in your inbox every week for free. And that's it. You're on your way to struggling more and being more productive, healthy, and motivated. Now, let's get on with the struggle. This is episode 41 of The Struggle with me, Gregor Thomson. And this week we're continuing on the subject of existentialism. Now, just FYI, the majority of the information provided in this week's and last week's episode was found in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, which I will link below. It's an incredibly useful tool for anyone looking to research philosophers and philosophical theory. Now, last week I discussed two of the precursors to the movement of existentialism, Friedrich Nietzsche and Soren Kierkegaard. So this week I'm going to discuss what is referred to as the Existentialist Moment, which was around the Second World War, as well as some of the broadly common ideas and theories within existentialism. Now, given the horror of the Second World War, the horrific concentration camps, the deaths of millions of innocent people, and the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it seems only necessary that the thinkers and writers of that generation would examine such topics as death, freedom, and meaning. Now, the expansion of the existentialist movement is incredibly difficult to overstate because its core ideas can be found amongst French writers like Jean-Paul Sartre, Spanish intellectuals like Joe Ortega Gasset, Russian novelists like Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, Norwegian authors like Henrik Ibsen, German critics like Franz Kafka, and American luminaries like F. Scott Fitzgerald, Ernest Hemingway, and Jack Kerouac. The fact that existentialism confronts freedom and the struggle of self-creation even influenced the politics of Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. The significance of self-realization and the considerable force of the individual within existentialism no doubt influenced various approaches to psychotherapy and what Viktor Frankl termed logotherapy, the therapeutic search for personal meaning. So it's clear that if existentialist ideas were discussed by these extremely influential and prominent writers, although of these major contributors to existentialism, only Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir actually identified as existentialists. However, if these writers and luminaries spoke of ideas relating to existentialism, then there must be some gold to find for our purposes. However, the issue with existentialism is that it's difficult to pinpoint exactly what it is, because many of its contributors disagreed on a lot of existentialist ideas. However, there are common overlapping ideas and notions that we can examine. The first is that existentialism seemed to be a response to the rise of nihilism in the late 19th century in Europe, because religious views that brought meaning to people's lives were slowly being replaced by objective science, which caused a destruction of a common moral framework shared amongst communities. And this framework was then replaced by feelings of hopelessness, meaninglessness, and anxiety. But much of existentialist work gave power and responsibility to the anxious individual. Instead of relying on God or gods to provide meaning in your life or to contribute to the world through you, You are responsible and able to produce meaning in your life and contribute to the world, according to existentialists. The second idea common in existentialism was the subjective experience. Much of philosophical tradition dictated a detachment from feelings and rather viewed the world through an objective lens, i.e., this is objective reality and there's no arguing with that. Whereas existentialism gave emphasis to the subjective experience through the eyes of the beholder. Thus, the world is dependent on the individual human condition and how that human engages with it, understands it, and finds meaning in it. Another idea common in existentialism is that of what this self is. Physicalists would have you believe that you are a substance, a physical being. Your physicality is your essence. You are an objective being. Whereas existentialists would have you believe that you are a way of being. You are change. You are a process. The former seems to me to be lacking of any power to control your future or control your mindset. Whereas if you are a process, it's up to you to decipher what process that is and what process that should be. We then have the power to alter our experience. Or, as the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy put it, our essence is not given in advance. We are contingently thrown into existence and are burdened with the task of creating ourselves through our choices and actions. A further idea that most existentialists agree on is that of freedom. What differentiates us from other beings is that we are self-conscious, and we've known this for centuries. The story of Adam and Eve, one of the oldest stories we have, showcases humans becoming self-conscious. Before Eve bites into that famous apple, both Adam and Eve are naked, unaware of their limitations and vulnerabilities. However, once Eve bites into the apple, she becomes aware of all of the ills of the world and her own vulnerabilities, and immediately covers herself. So if we are aware of ourselves and our own limitations, existentialists believe that it is our responsibility for who we become, how we view the world, and how we accept our limitations, and what we do going forward. Now, this does not mean that we have complete and unrestricted control over what we do, just that we have the ability to provide meaning to our limitations and what we have little to no control over. Next, existentialists believe in the critical importance of authenticity. Rather than conform to the social norms and traditions of society, it is crucial that we walk the path we authentically want to walk, not what is expected of us. It's chasing what is meaningful to us specifically. Now, this could well be what is common, or it could be what is uncommon, as long as you're doing so deliberately and authentically. Be true to yourself regardless of externalities. Maybe you do what most people do. But this is only acceptable if it is what you authentically choose to do and not what is expected of you. And lastly, existentialists reject ideas surrounding moral absolutes and universalizing judgments about right moral conduct. Now, this doesn't mean that a moral life is not possible, just that a moral life is one where we can take responsibility for our actions and help others do the same. So, what's some lessons we can take away from these common ideas and theories of existentialism? First, you're responsible for creating meaning in your life. You have the power to do that. The world is meaningless without individuals bearing the weight of responsibility and finding meaning in the burden of life. Which brings me on to the second lesson. The world is not all physical and objective. Reality is seen through the individual's eyes. So if you can create meaning in your life, you can literally change reality for the better. You can change what you see and how you see it. Thirdly, if you can create meaning in your life and alter the reality you experience, then you have the freedom. But freedom only comes when you accept your limitations and vulnerabilities. It's your responsibility to become painfully aware of all of your vulnerabilities and either accept them or work on them. Those who remain ignorant of their ills will suffer more than those who struggle through them. And after all, the podcast is called The Struggle for a reason. To live a fulfilling and meaningful life is to become free. And the only way to find freedom is to struggle to break free from whatever restricts you. This doesn't mean that you have to fix yourself, just that you don't let your limitations hold you down. Once you become fully aware of your vulnerabilities and limitations, you can truly be who you are. And existentialists believe that you mustn't allow traditions, authorities, and externalities dictate what you do and what you believe. To live freely and meaningfully is to live authentically. As Dr. Seuss said, be who you are and say what you feel, because people who mind don't matter, and people who matter don't mind. And lastly, once you break free from whatever restricts you, become your authentic self, are aware of your limitations, and are able to find meaning in your life, the moral life is to help those around you do the same, because according to existentialists, there's no such thing as moral absolutes or your universalizing judgments surrounding moral conduct. So there you have it. That's existentialism in a nutshell. A very broad nutshell, because you could spend years studying this one philosophy, but that gives you a broad view of the ideas and the people who created them. And of course, as many existentialists would agree, the answer lies in the struggle. So keep on struggling. Just a few more things before you take off. Firstly, thank you for watching. It genuinely means a lot to see people viewing and liking the content. Second, if you're enjoying the content, please subscribe and share. Those are the best ways you can support the podcast. As you can probably tell, I don't have a ton of fancy equipment. I don't have a team behind me helping with marketing or editing the podcast. I don't have much resources. So any help is greatly appreciated. You can also stay up to date with everything I'm doing on social media. All of the links will be in the show notes. And you can also listen to the Struggle podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And lastly, keep on struggling.